Okay, let's dive right into a seriously high-stakes medical scenario. We're talking about a situation where time is, quite literally, tissue. Today's explainer is all about the acute abdomen.
Now, you know abdominal pain is incredibly common, right? It actually accounts for roughly 5 to 10% of all emergency department visits. But the big question we have to ask is, how do physicians actually separate a benign, everyday stomachache from a potentially fatal rupture? It's a literal race against the clock.
To figure this out, we're going to cover a few key areas today. First, defining the acute abdomen. Second, etiology and pathophysiology. Third, key signs and symptoms. Fourth, modern diagnostic investigations. Fifth, management and surgical emergencies. And finally, avoiding pitfalls and delays. So let's jump straight into part 1, defining the acute abdomen and why it's such a race against time.
Basically, acute abdomen is a broad umbrella term used in medicine. It covers a massive range of conditions, from mild self-limiting issues to absolutely life-threatening emergencies. The hallmark here is a sudden, unexpected onset of non-traumatic abdominal pain, with a symptom duration of 5 days max that requires emergency evaluation. A delay in definitive care could literally lead to multi-organ failure, hemodynamic instability, which is a dangerous drop in blood pressure, or even worse.
It's actually fascinating to look at how the care for this has evolved over a century. Back in 1921, Dr. Zachary Cope's paradigm relied purely on taking a patient's history and conducting a physical exam. Fast forward to the modern era of 2024, and we have real-time access to advanced imaging like CT angiography, plus early analgesia for pain. Yet, interestingly enough, that foundational physical exam from over 100 years ago still dictates how we deploy all our modern technology.
Moving on to part 2, let's look at etiology and pathophysiology to understand what's actually going wrong inside.
When we look at the epidemiological data, specifically from a major pooled study in East and Central Africa, we see a massive prevalence of acute appendicitis at over 42% and bowel obstruction at nearly 36%. These two conditions absolutely dominate surgical emergencies, with issues like perforated peptic ulcers coming in further down the line at about 4.5%.
Now, the specific pathophysiological causes can be incredibly diverse. To remember the triggers for something like acute pancreatitis, medical professionals use some really clever mnemonics, like get smashed. It perfectly showcases the huge range of triggers, everything from common culprits like gallstones and ethanol, to steroids, mumps, autoimmune issues, and even scorpion venom. Throw in hyperlipidemia, ERCP, and certain drugs, and you can see how many different things can trigger a sudden, severe inflammatory response.
That brings us to part 3, key signs and symptoms, and how doctors read the clues. What's really interesting here is that a skilled clinician can almost instantly distinguish the type of internal problem just by watching the patient's behavior. If the pain is a muscular spasm in a hollow organ, like colic, the patient is usually restless, pacing around, dealing with waxing and waning pain. But if it's peritonitis, which is severe inflammation of the abdominal lining, the patient will lie perfectly still, almost prostrated, with a rigid, board-like abdomen. For them, the slightest movement is just absolute agony. It's also fascinating that the intensity of this parietal peritoneal pain is directly tied to the chemical makeup of whatever is leaking into the abdominal cavity. For instance, the sudden release of sterile, highly acidic fluid causes far more immediate explosive pain than a leak of neutral feces. It all comes down to that chemical and enzymatic activity. All right, let's get into part 4, modern diagnostic investigations, or as we can call it, the technological trench. To start, a clinician is going to rapidly draw some essential initial blood tests. A full blood count checks for infection, urea and electrolytes check for severe dehydration. They'll also run liver function tests and look at serum amylase to catch things like pancreatitis. They'll grab an arterial blood gas, and crucially, they'll do a group and save or cross-match to prepare for any potential blood loss. It is a rapid-fire data gathering mission. But the real heavy lifter today is the imaging. Contrast-enhanced CT angiography of the abdomen and pelvis is the primary imaging technique for acute abdominal pain in non-pregnant adults. It's an absolute game-changer. It vastly increases diagnostic certainty, reduces unnecessary hospital admissions, and accelerates life-saving surgical interventions by showing the care team exactly what they're dealing with. Of course, care always has to be highly individualized. For pregnant patients, we pivot entirely away from CT scans to avoid ionizing radiation.
Ultrasonography becomes the definitive initial test of choice here, allowing doctors to safely hunt for conditions like an ectopic pregnancy while protecting the fetus, with MRI serving as a great secondary option.
Next up is Part 5, Management and Surgical Emergencies, where it's all about stopping the clock. The immediate clinical actions follow a strict, well-tested sequence. First, the patient is made nil by mouth, or NBM. Then the team initiates what's colloquially called drip and suck, instituting IV fluids while using a nasogastric tube to decompress the bowel. They'll also relieve pain with early analgesia, treat for shock, and cross-match blood. It's all about restoring fluids and prepping the body for whatever comes next. But if the patient exhibits certain red flags, conservative management stops immediately. Conditions usually requiring an urgent laparotomy include the rupture of an organ, like the spleen, aorta, or an ectopic pregnancy. It also includes the perforation of a peptic ulcer, a perforated appendix or bowel, or severe peritonitis with shock. In these situations, surgical source control is the only way to save a life, and the patient is rushed directly to the operating room.
Now, here's a surprising fact. Despite historical fears that pain meds would hide symptoms, modern evidence strongly endorses administering pain medication or analgesia early. It absolutely does not alter the accuracy of the physical exam or treatment plans. It just gives the patient desperately needed relief while the medical team continues their workup.
Finally, let's look at Part 6, Avoiding Pitfalls and Delays, and the undeniable human element. Even with the best technology, things can go wrong. This brilliant Ishikawa cause and effect diagram maps out the intersecting risks perfectly. It shows how a misdiagnosis doesn't just come from one error. It happens from a combination of imaging delays, inadequate patient histories, and deeply ingrained diagnostic biases. Clinicians really have to aggressively fight their own mental shortcuts. Key cognitive biases to avoid include anchoring, which is sticking to an initial diagnosis despite new evidence, and attribution, which is judging symptoms based on patient stereotypes. Avoiding these traps ensures there aren't fatal delays in getting a vital surgical consultation. Ultimately, despite all the high-tech CT scans and complex blood panels, a human being has to make a life-or-death call. As the medical literature elegantly puts it, surgeons remain the final arbiters of surgical care, which often involves making life-altering decisions under uncertain circumstances. They have to look at the data, embrace the uncertainty, and make the call. Which brings us to a big question. As medicine and diagnostic technology advance at lightning speed, how will human intuition and judgment evolve in the emergency room? With all our modern technology, can we ever completely remove the human element from the ticking clock of the acute abdomen? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.